and then fill it.
Okay.
Why were these so late out here? What revisions were made?
Those were for the May 16th ones?
Yeah.
We had them, and then they were being reviewed.
Okay.
I have to look back at night.
Okay.
There was some between the May 16th ones and the April 18th.
That's what I was getting confused on. I don't know if
Both of them were in lieu still.
Okay. We ready? All right, I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting for Sylvania Township Trustees at 5 p.m.
Call the roll, Mr. Crandall.
Here.
Mr. Mahoney.
Here.
Mr. Genuine.
Here.
And then Mr. Simcoe is absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the May 16th regular meeting. Anybody see those or have any objections to those?
It wasn't online, so if we could, I'd like to. So I don't know why, but you.
That's what I wasn't sure. When I saw it on here, I went over and scrolled through it. If we want to hold that off till next meeting and get both of them done.
I think we're together on that set.
Okay. I don't think there's much out there. Any additions or deletions to the meeting this evening? Okay. Hearing of the public on agenda items?
We have none, but for non-agenda later on in the meeting.
Okay. The zoning meeting will take place at 6 p.m., correct?
Right. Yes.
So that would bring up Steve.
Good evening. I have one resolution, number 17-090, authorization to award bid and enter into contract for 2017 leaf pickup.
And who did the bid go to?
It went to Batanian.
And how did it look compared to the past bids?
Batanian came in at $5.32.50 per hour. Geddes was $6.26 per hour, and A&J was $5.35 per hour.
Wow.
This winning bid is $2.50 per hour less than what last year's was.
Great. I'll offer resolution 17-090, authorized to award bid for 2017 leaf pickup. Second?
Okay, call the roll, Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
And Mr. Genuine.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thanks. Fire department?
Good afternoon, guys. Before we get into that, just to keep you apprised, the fire department had a very busy week last week. We had 3 significant fires, so I want to praise the guys. The guys did. I was at one of them. I was out of town for training for the other 2, but the other chiefs filled in admirably, and the guys did a great job on all 3 incidents we had. So, well, actually, the third one, we were coming back from training, and Chief Nye and I were both in street clothes and helped Chief Furlick out with the fire, but he did real well on it. So tonight what I'd like to do is bring Matt Murray and Mackenzie up. Matt's our newest full-time member, and I'd like to have Deputy Chief Furlick have him read the pledge to him, and then Mackenzie will pin his badge on for him tonight.
Okay, you ready? I'll try to go slow for you. Or short sentences. All right. I, and state your name,
I, Matt Murray,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Ohio,
and the state of Ohio,
the resolutions of Sylvania Township,
the resolutions of Sylvania Township,
and the rules and regulations of the Division of Fire.
and the rules and regulations of the Divisions of Fire.
that I will not be influenced
that I will not be influenced
by any consideration
by any consideration
except merit and fitness
except merit and fitness
in the appointment or discharge of my duties,
in the appointment or discharge of my duties,
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
in all respects,
in all respects,
discharge the duties of my position.
discharge the duties of my position.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think she's done that before. Usually everyone struggles with it. All right. Congratulations.
Way to go, man. Congrats.
Congratulations. Good luck.
All right, that's all we, Chief,
Yes.
weren't you gonna bring the new fire truck here? Was I absent at a
It's
meeting?
actually here tonight, but
Is it?
that one got past me. I'm sorry on that.
Okay.
With all the things with the county and things going on, I've been kind of...
Yeah, I just, I saw the truck sitting out there and I thought, oh, is this the new truck? And so I just.
And actually, I mean, it actually is, if you like it to stay around for afterwards, or
That's okay.
if
do it
it's
another
okay with you, I'll make sure to put it on, and we'll have it here before, what's the next date?
15th or
15th,
14th?
yeah. So I'll make sure to have it there, I'll make sure to put it on the calendar. That one's on me, so.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll get it here for you.
Thanks, Mike.
And we'll also have the new street sweeper here for the 15th. It's,
All right.
believe it or not, it's really technologically advanced.
I think I saw it cruising through my neighborhood, so.
So we'll have it there too.
Chief?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have just one resolution for you. It's Resolution 17-095, and I think actually it should be reading, on my thing it says resolution to hire, authorization to hire one dispatcher. We went through our final interviews of a pretty lengthy process, screening process and such last week, and we're pretty excited about the candidate that we were able to select.
I'll offer Resolution 17-095, authorizing to hire new dispatcher.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks, Chief.
I have nothing for the board. Does the board have anything for me?
No.
If not, then Scott?
I have three resolutions tonight. First one is 17-091, transfer of appropriations. And we're at a shortfall in a couple of line items, but we're able to cover them within other line items that were under budget within the funds. 10,000 in the fire and 2,000 in the police.
Can we do them all as one, or should we go individually?
We can do it all at once.
I'd like to offer Resolution 17-091-092. Oh,
One resolution at a time.
Okay.
Two different funds.
transfer of appropriations under 091.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
The second one is just to increase the appropriation in these two line items so we can make the transfer from the fire fund to the grant fund.
I'll offer Resolution 17092, appropriation from encumbered balance.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
And then the third resolution, 17-093, that just authorizes the advance that we just budgeted for.
I'll move resolution 17093, advance of funds.
Second.
Call the roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genoway?
Yes.
Yes.
Open discussion? Anything,
Aye.
gentlemen?
I have one thing.
Okay.
In the paper today, there was an article about the county commissioners are putting a property tax on for the new jail. And one of the things that was said in the article was that if this fails, they'll take money from EMS to pay for the jail. I've gotten together with a couple of other entities that have EMS service provided by the county, and we're going to work on a committee and get together and write a letter to the commissioners that they should not touch EMS funds for their jail because I'm that old. I remember the original 92 sales tax levy that was put on, and the commitment, not written, but the verbal commitment to vote for this levy was 2/3 of this levy would go to EMS, 1/3 would go to safety services, the jail, courthouse, and that. And that was in 92, and they pretty much have stuck to that. And now it looks like if the property tax fails, that they would change that formula and take our EMS money away. And if they do that, there would be no countywide EMS. So just so you know, we're on top of it, and the entities will be notifying the county that this is not the right thing to do.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your initiative there. This would be about $750,000 a year to us.
Yeah.
That'd be a big hit.
Sounds like the chief's on top of it. I mean, he said he's analyzing what, how many runs they're doing and
Right.
billing processings, and so, I mean, let's just stay on top of it, and
We will.
good job. Good job to the chief, too, on that. Tim Porter? You wanted to speak on TARDA?
Can you identify yourself?
Okay, I wanted to be here at the last meeting, but I was... Oh, okay. I'm Tim Porter. I'm a resident of Sylvania Township. I've been a member of the Public Transit Committee at TMCOG for at least 7 years. And I was really disappointed in the vote from you representatives of Sylvania Township on the change from a property tax to a sales tax. Now, the reason I'm here today is I'm trying to figure out why that vote was made. I just don't understand it. I mean, what I heard in the paper is, really not a reason. I mean, if you really want a regional system, you have to have a sales tax. Without a sales tax, you cannot have a regional system. So to me, if that is the reason, I just don't understand it. We have been talking about having an umbrella organization over the whole region that would include Oregon, Curtis, Perrysburg, Bowling Green, Swanton. But the thing with it is, you can't have that unless you have a sales tax. The people will not buy into a regional system if it's only Lucas County that's paying for it. If you have a sales tax, then everybody pays for it. So I'm trying to understand why that vote was made. I mean, by these members not voting for that, that means 300,000 people cannot vote on whether they want a sales tax or not. And that's all that was. It wasn't saying the sales tax was going to pass, it was just a vote. And to change the process from property tax to sales tax. So I'm trying to understand.
Disappointed you missed last meeting because I think we were pretty clear in our reasons. And again, I think the lack of the plan and the funding source, I think we were all supportive of the change from a property tax to a sales tax and going to certainly providing the region with the tarps and call a ride. We're all big supporters of that. But the real lack of a plan when he kind of quoted, or something I read in the paper about, they wanted to add the Toledo Express as a stop and things. It didn't feel to me like he had really put enough time and effort into the plan and involved the communities. And I think too, the timing wasn't right with the amount on the sales tax. It was that idea. I think it gets gray really quick when you start rebating monies from one entity to the next. And how was he dividing those monies up? I know we were going to stand to take in close to $500,000 a year, but what was that based on? If the tax was coming out of Sylvania Township from a sales tax, should we not get that back? And those types of things were never made clear. And again, I think it gives him a year to put that plan together, and it also allows him another year to come back in at a number where we're not talking rebates and kickbacks and things. And I just think if he did that, it'd be much clearer to the public to vote on it instead of, and so, again, I don't think any one of us on this board is against public transportation and providing the services to the region. But I think that was a very poor plan, and it really, taking their tax dollar supported from 13 to 30 million, just, it made very little sense to me. So.
Part of it is people think that that's a lot of money, but people don't realize.
It is a lot of money, sir.
Well, but just think
about it. It's more than
this.
the township has in its entire budget for a year.
I understand that, but think about this, that extra $10,000, that $10 million that he said that would be rebated to the areas, that's coming from people that don't live in Lucas County. And that's something that really makes a difference when you're talking about public transit.
I think the majority of the sales here in Lucas County are to Lucas County residents.
I agree, but the thing of it is, about a third of them aren't. Somewhere around 20 to 35% are not from Lucas County residents. So that is a big boost that would happen to the economy. But right now, we don't have that. And the thing of it is, it's really difficult to tell TARTA to plan for a regional umbrella-type transit system when they're concerned about making their ends meet. They're concerned about efficiency. They're concerned about providing the services to the people in Lucas County. It's kind of hard to plan for a region when you only have funding, barely enough funding to make things work in Lucas County. So that's the reason why I'm concerned.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Tim.
Thank you.
So do we adjourn and then we open a new meeting till?
Well, the meeting won't adjourn, we'll just keep it open until 6 o'clock. And the advertisement for the zoning was made for 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
So
Okay.
we'll-
I guess
So
we'll.
we can shut the
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
off.
We'll recess.
Okay.
Okay. I would like to bring the meeting back to order at 6 p.m. Daryl, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can walk us through each of the steps.
Okay. You have received the staff reports for the zone change request at 2854 McCord Road and 2903 Wilford Drive. Scott, if you can bring up the site plan, please. This is a change in zoning from A4 rural residential to R3 PUD. No, I'm sorry, it was a separate attachment. I think it was the last one. What? I can't tell if that's... Is that the revised one?
Yeah.
Okay. Consists of two back-to-back lots located approximately 1,000 feet south of Central Avenue, currently single-family uses, combined total acreage of 6.76. It's a proposed villa-style multifamily development consisting of 46 units. The revised site plan that came out last week consists of 7 6-unit buildings and 1 4-unit building. So there's 8 buildings altogether, 8 residential buildings, and then 1 accessory building for extra garage or storage space located in the center of the property, along with a 15-space visitor parking lot. These are one-story villa-style buildings with attached two-car garages. There's a single private drive through the property with gated entrances at McCord Road and Wilford Drive. Initially, the applicant had requested a change of zoning to a straight R3 residential, and that original plan featured 50 units. It met all the R3 development standards with the exception of the setbacks on McCord Road. And for straight R3, there are no coverage or open space requirements. But concerns from the Lucas County Plan Commission staff and the zoning department led to the request to the applicant to revise their proposed zoning to a PUD. There's 3 waivers the applicant is looking to have approved tonight as part of the zone change approval. The first one is the underlying R3 zoning dictates a minimum of a 30-foot rear setback for main buildings. And this requirement is met on the Wilford parcel, which well, anyways, it's the parcel on the right. Did have a, there we go. That one right there. And the McCord Road parcel is this one. So the requirement of a 30-foot rear setback is met on the Wilford Drive. They actually have a 39-foot setback. On the McCord Road parcel, they're showing a 20-foot setback from Cary Commons North and Cary Town East on the south side, and then 20 feet on the north, and that's abutting the ProMedica cardiology office building. So those are 2 of the waivers they're looking for. And then the third one consists of the coverage for all the buildings, driveways, parking lots, sidewalks. There's a 40% requirement in the PUD requirements for that, and they are at 43.8%. So they're looking for a waiver for that 3.8%. Oh, that's much better. Thank you. The Sylvania Township Land Use Plan recommends suburban residential uses for this area of the township with the numbers of housing units generally between 2 and 6 units per acre. And this proposal is at 6.8 units per acre, so it is slightly over the recommendation of the land use plan. The neighboring developments to the south, the Cary Commons North is at 5.1 and Carytown East is at 4.5. Derby Village, which is right over here, is at 12.2. The Lucas County Plan Commission unanimously recommended approval of the requested zone change on June 28th, and the Sylvania Township Zoning Commission recommended approval by a 4-to-1 vote on July 12th. Zoning staff finds the proposed PUD to be an appropriate transitional buffer between the higher intensity commercial uses to the north and northwest and the residential uses to the east, west, and south. Additionally, staff notes that the proposed project meets or exceeds the standards and requirements of the zoning resolution, accepting the aforementioned requirements that will require a waiver from the Board of Trustees. While the proposed density is somewhat beyond the range recommended in the land use plan, the PUD aspect locks the development into a specific use, density, and layout that should have minimal, if any, unfavorable impact upon surrounding properties. Regarding those requested waivers to the setbacks on the McCord Road parcel, staff recommends approval provided that a solid privacy fence is installed along the entire northern and southern property lines on both parcels. On the waiver request relating to the 40% open space requirement, staff recommends approval based upon the applicant's willingness to forego their original intended R3 zoning with greater density and instead submit a PUD to safeguard the density and use on the properties. Staff recommends approval of the requested zone change from RA residential to R3 residential PUD for the properties located at 2854 McCord Road and 2903 Wilford Drive, subject to the 54 conditions presented in the Lucas County Plan Commission staff report of June 28th.
Okay. Do we open up a public hearing then? This is where we need Simco, but...
The applicant is also here as well. So.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and open up the public hearing, and we'll go through the people who have signed in to speak, and then if the applicant wants to address any of the issues brought up, then they can have a chance to answer the questions. So at this time, 6:08, I would like to open a public hearing to discuss the proposed zone changes on McCord Road and Wilford Drive. And is it Jan Stone?
Yes.
Can you please come up and state your name and address and give your concerns?
I prefer a couple other people talk before I do.
Okay.
Like,
Sean?
I'm gonna wait, I was gonna wait when I come to writing things down.
Okay. Craig?
Thank you. My name is Craig Covert, and my wife and I live at 28 Page Lindsay Lane in Carytown East, and that is the third lot on the east side of Page Lindsay Lane, third lot from the north boundary line of, yes, right there. So I've been elected as the spokesman for the residents of Carytown East, and I've spoken at all the other two hearings, and they've asked me to speak at this hearing as well. The residents are not opposed to this development, provided that Page Lindsay Lane is not extended, and provided that the zoning is changed to R3 PUD, and provided that there is a 6-foot solid wood privacy fence surrounding the perimeter of the development, and provided that the developer will adequately and nicely landscape this development so that it conforms with the surrounding residential properties and areas. And last but not least, we've talked to Denny Nunneman about keeping as much of the wooded area as he can in conformity with what he has to build. And all of those areas are now wooded area except for up at the front on McCord Road. So we've been enjoying the woods, and we realize that a lot of the trees will come down, but we like to see as many trees as possible stay. And I will mention too that we have appreciated the professionalism of Denny and his crew, and they've been very helpful to us and answered our questions promptly, and so we've appreciated that relationship. So we are looking forward to a good neighborly relationship once this development is erected.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Terry?
Actually, I thought I was just doing a sign-in sheet. Craig, this is Spokesman for Carytown East, and that's all fine.
Okay. Is it Jen or Al Phillips?
Hi, we are Jennifer and Al Billups. We live at 2813, or we're building at 2813 Wilford Drive. That's the, not the lot on bottom of it, yep, right there. I guess we just wanted to say that we're opposed to this project because, you know, we bought that property about 3 years ago, and we went through different builders trying to find the perfect area, and you know, we actually live now on the other side of Central on Wilford Drive. And, you know, we've been there for about 15 years, and we love the neighborhood. Our kids grew up in the neighborhood and gone to Stranahan schools, their whole life. And so we decided, the house that we build, we wanted to be in the same area. And honestly, had we known that this project was going through, we probably wouldn't have built in that area or in this neighborhood at all. You just feel like it brings makes it feel less like a neighborhood. We wanted our kids to grow up in a residential area.
And I'm concerned about the apartments because just like Carytown, they own the properties, not the Paradox. They don't own it, and we don't know how many people are going to come in and out their leases, and I know if it's higher end now, but 10 or 20 years ago, after, they're going to be more less expensive, and people are going to get more not shady people, but shady people. We have 3 kids, small kids, and I don't want them to be afraid, or I don't want to be afraid, because 47 or 48 units that we're not going to know who is there. I don't want that. If I had known that, I wouldn't have bought, and I wouldn't have built on that land.
And like I said, this has been a 3-year process. We've rolled through Derby Lane, and we came to our grips with ourselves and said, you know what, it's an apartment complex, and it's here, so we can look past it. And then here comes another one.
Beautiful job on the house, by the way.
Thank you.
You guys are doing it right.
Thanks.
Really nice. Really
Slasky
nice.
Builders, they did all the work.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thanks for coming out and saying something, too.
Thank you.
This next one, I'm having a hard time with the first name. Begins with a B. Is it?
That's mine.
Okay.
I'll wait till the end. Thank you.
Okay. Mark Herr?
Yes, I'm here, and I prefer to wait till the other folks that are going to speak. I can speak now. I don't know if that's a tactic or not. Usually, the Joy Yards in Jan usually aren't short for words, but my name is Mark Herr, and I'm an attorney, and I've been the trustee for this property for 24 years. And just like folks that are deciding to make it their home now, it's been our home for a lot of years. My sister here, Barbara, lives right down the street. Kathleen lives down the street, and I have a brother that lives right there in the area. If we wanted trashy housing in there, we would have sold the property 30 years ago. And that's not our intention. I don't think anything about this project is unflattering or cheap. I think it's just the opposite. It's really nice. Now, the two that just spoke before, that's the first time anybody but Ms. Stone and Ms. Juilliard have dissented. But if I look at the statistics, within a quarter of a mile, 506 people live there. We've had Carytown here saying yes, and 500 people a quarter of a mile away with no opinion. I believe by acquiescence, that means they're not opposed to it. Within a half a mile, there's 1,900 people. And within 1 mile, there's 7,800 people. So now I've heard of 4 folks that have dissented about what's going on here. We ask you to consider the 9-1 votes so far in favor. We'd ask you to consider the increased tax base from 1 property without a home on it to 46. I think that's important. And another issue came to light, but I don't care to speak to it right now until I hear from the folks that have raised the issue. So I'll defer at this point, but we believe that it fits, that it's really nice. Some of the area has big apartments on it that don't fit, but that's not something we can do anything about. This isn't Derby Village. It's quite significantly different. So we ask for your consideration and we ask for your approval. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, thanks for your comments. Could you mind just giving us your address just for the tape?
Yes, 18478 Scott Road, Bowling Green, Ohio. I don't know if there were any other questions.
I think that'll do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Kathleen Moore?
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Moore. I live at 6520 Wild Oaks Drive. So it's right basically at the corner of Wilford and Wild Oaks. I am a sister to Mark Herr. My parents bought the property back when it was just woods. And so they built it from cutting down the trees, building the home, and we had 11 children and my parents that built the property. And so somebody in our family has lived there the entire time. Across the street is my sister Barbara. So if you see the top 3 squares at the basic top right of the photo of the diagram, and then hers is right below that, and then the right across is where my brother resides. So, of course, concerns in the neighborhood have always been toward safety, having children in the neighborhood. And so through the years, we've seen a progression. And I'll be honest, when Derby Village first was proposed, my concern was for traffic and for safety. I'm in law enforcement, so I also had concerns about any criminal activities for, people that may be coming and going short term. Living there, that has not been a problem. It has not been a problem. I closely monitor criminal activity, so that is something that is, definitely to be considered when you're looking at multifamily housing. It's not been, an issue that we've seen. The traffic on the street is more from the church when Westgate Chapel lets out. But through the years, like I said, anything that we thought would be a concern from Derby Village really didn't prove out to be the problem that we expected. It's great to have Carytown Village's support, and I see that as a positive attribute. We do have a wooded area. It has been. It was our barn where we had horses growing up. But, with progress, with time, we can see a beautiful land use for that area. We've seen some beautiful houses that have been built in the area. We've looked at progress as a positive instead of saying we want to keep everything always wooded, everything the way it was. And again, looking at it from a criminal basis, the more lighting and activity that you have surrounding an area actually decreases the crime, because they like the dark, they like the shadows, they like to be able to hide in areas. So I don't see that as a negative. I see that as a positive and growth that can actually be, aesthetically pleasing and a positive attribute to the neighborhood. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments and your service.
Thanks.
Is it Jerry or Jenny Miller?
Jerry, I will defer at this time.
Okay, so does anybody else care to speak?
They're waiting for me. so I might as well get it over with. I am Sean Drulard, and I live at 2911 Wilford. I've already sent you a letter. I think you guys have read it, haven't you?
Yes, thank you.
About my concerns and all that. But I want to address a couple of issues they spoke about. As far as lighting, Derby is not lit up at night hardly at all. And if you'd pull the police report, I live across the street from it. I see the activity that comes and goes. And I'm sure there's a lot, I lost my voice. I'm sure there's a lot of reports into that. This property is a quarter, the whole line. My property is all the way down in the back end of it. I'm a quarter of this project. I don't know if I need to go over everything I wrote you guys or not, or you want me to bring it up again?
Maybe the highlights? It's up to you.
You know, I'm just concerned.
You got the floor, so.
Okay, I'm just concerned about, it wasn't approved across the board in zoning. There have been many issues. The only way this can get approved to begin with is if you waive everything that they're asking for in variances. I have worked with Denny. He is a nice man. However, you know, it's a beautiful neighborhood, and I understand something's got to be built there. But I also am very well aware of people that would have bought that property had there been a for sale sign on that property for housing, regular housing. And as Mr. Zabel said, why didn't you buy the property? There was never a for sale sign on the house itself to begin with. Like I said, but the way this all fits out, there's not enough open space at all. I never seen the revised site plan to begin with. And I know what they're going to ask, and I'm talking about a fence. It's not that long of a fence, but it is over 8 feet off my property line. When we moved in there in 1978, that fence was over alongside which the HERS put up. It was never contested in all the years I've lived there. So due to adverse possession, that little section is mine, and that would throw off more of the site plan. And I'm sure that's what they're going to talk about. But as far as this fitting in the neighborhood, no, it doesn't. If you guys all took the time to drive down there, you would see what I'm talking about. I know not every tree can be saved. You know, I understand that. You know, but for once, please go with the residents. The residents, everybody in Wild Oak, they're not all agreeing with this project, by the way. The Abbotts and my other neighbors are not agreeing with it. They just are frustrated into coming to the township, and their elected officials are not standing behind the residents. It's very concerning to them. But they're not in agreement. And as far as the house directly across from me is rated R4, I think it is. R2. They are applying back for it to go back to A. A new family moved in there. At one time that was owned by HERS. And they were going to build a unit. They were going to build over there, but they didn't for whatever reason. And when Derby did go in, they argued with it. Like I said, I don't mind them building over there, but I do care about, like this project, fitting in a little sliver of land that's going to really change that residential area. Wild Oaks is all residential area. That's not really mentioned on there. Across the street, they're going to request back to an A zoning. I talked to them the other day. And like I said, a lot of the residents are just fed up with the way it's done right now. Do you have any questions for me? I don't know if I can talk, but...
You did good, by the way, thank you.
Okay, but you did get my letters, right?
We did.
Okay.
Is there anyone else?
Good evening. Jan Stone, 2740 Wilford. If we didn't know there was a revised plan, they're still not showing required sidewalks that weren't mentioned also. that they have to put in at each end, which should take away a lot more open space. So their 43.8 keeps shrinking, along with this adverse possession that she definitely has a claim since 1978. I don't know how to change acres from feet, but there's a little bit of land. If any of you drove down, you know there's only houses on Wild Oaks, on Wilford, except for Derby, which is about half the opening that this project will be. It's a single lane, has an open space buffer. Derby, I don't know how she's saying isn't a problem other than she lives at an end where she shouldn't see it enough. I've almost been hit twice. And I don't go down the street that much, but people come flying out of Derby. Anyways, the renters, they leave their doggy bags in our bushes. They're renters. They don't care about the property. And Derby had to keep 3 acres of wetland. A lot different with all that open space than what this project's going to have. Their open space is the backyards, which I don't understand is a lot. They also, in the description, says it's commercial to the north. Yeah, on the McCord end. There's 8 houses, or actually 9 houses with Sean's between this project and commercial. That's a lot of houses. And on the east side, well, she basically brought up what I would say about that. People that bought the R2 directly across from Sean didn't even know their zoning. And they have put tons of money in that house. All I know is this is not step-down zoning. And being Derby was allowed doesn't validate putting in a second project. McCord end, unfortunately, wouldn't have anything to say about it. I mean, I do have, but on the Wilford end, it was suggested they had sidewalks internally. People are not going to be, I don't know what the buildings are, at the Wilford end building. They're not going to go up to visitor parking in the wintertime and walk all the way back to visit their friends. They're going to park in front. And it's just a single lane driveway. I don't understand. That's what they do at Derby. But again, Derby at least has a grass buffer. But I've seen Derby where it's blocked enough times you wouldn't be able to get an emergency vehicle through. And I've asked with no answers or even discussion. Traffic study was brought up. Haven't heard there was one. Wetland study. Haven't heard there was one. And then on the waivers. I mean, again, there's enough that is required that I don't know where it's 43.8%. It should be a lot more. And yes, PUD states that a developer should be sensitive to the natural landscape of existing features. There isn't any way, if you look at this property, that anything's going to be saved as far as any of the major trees. I mean, this is the Oak Openings region. I haven't seen a development in a long time other than a couple of them back behind Myers that were done so nicely, just like the Heart Doctor next to this project, was done beautifully saving trees. This one's going to come in and wipe them all out. I don't care what he says, there's just no way they're going to be saved. And if you look at, if anyone went past Orchard Creek on Bancroft that he's building right now. I don't know how it's called Orchard Creek. There's not a tree left on the property. Again, her adverse possession should change things. And the big problem with this for all the neighbors, and most don't bother to come anymore. We've been fighting since 2000 to stop things, but is that they are not privately owned. If this had come in as condos, it'd be a different story. And I don't know, rules were written by zoning, and nothing, not one thing has been said about the waivers. So I hope to hear something about them. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you.
Mark Herr again. I had to defer on the issue of this adverse possession because, quite frankly, I've never heard of it before. I've represented this family and this trust. Now, you heard Ms. Drouillard say that we put up the fence. She didn't put it up and take any property. Now, there's something about adverse possession. There's certain things that are required. It has to be hostile, open, notorious, continuous for 21 years, not sneaky and clandestine and nonsensical. Now, you would have thought if there was a real adverse possession claim that the attorney and the trustee that's a party would have ever heard of it once. It would have been different if maybe I got a phone call, an email, a regular letter, a certified letter, a text message. Why didn't anybody talk to the party on this private issue of adverse possession? Because it's not there. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And it's kind of interesting that it wasn't raised in the Plan Commission. It wasn't raised in the zoning board. But now suddenly it pops up out of nowhere. And there's something interesting about adverse possession. You have to do it purposely, not somehow fall into it if you believe that's the case. I don't want to make too much out of nothing, but I find it, again, peculiar that I, as a party, have never been noticed. There's no pending litigation. There's no complaint ever been filed. There's been nothing. So if we want to have a quiet title action, can I please talk? If you want a quiet title action, that's handled in a court of law, not here. So, and again, it's hard to react and respond to something that you've never even heard of before. So to that I say I welcome it. Be happy to litigate that issue. It has no bearing on your decision. And then if I win, my attorneys will be paid. If I lose, I'll be getting paid for a lot of taxes and interest for that property that was probably taken adversely. But we'll deal with that in a different court at a different time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there...
I think you guys had time. Do I have to go through it all again about adverse possession? Because I did send you that in a letter, what it was all about. They were the ones that should have complained. I mean, there was no, I don't have to prove anything other than that fence has been there, and I can prove that it's been there. And it will have a lot to do with this development if, that's the case, which it is. And, that's what my attorney said. I mean, and all I have to do, go ahead, what were you going to ask?
No, I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that I'm not arguing the fence and who owns it or whatnot. I'm talking about that space between that. If you look up adverse possession states that if the land is not questioned within 25 years between that space, that the property owner next door can have that due to adverse possession. And I have lived there since 1978.
Yeah.
And I had the survey done in 1990.
I don't want to get into who's got what in this thing, but I looked at the property, Sean, and are you paying taxes now on that property?
Yeah, not mine.
In your mind, okay. I think that's something that you guys would want to work out outside here, yeah. So I can't make a decision based on what he said and she said, but I appreciate your comments. I know, I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would wish to speak? Okay. The applicant?
My name's Don Feller with Feller Finch & Associates, 1683 Woodlands Drive, Miami, Ohio. Just a couple of things, a little bit of background on the project. I think as Mr. Grouse indicated, we had originally submitted a request for R3 zoning for this property with a proposal for 50 units. The thinking being that across the street on the east side of Wilford was R3. We have R3 on the west side of McCord. On the other end, we have R3 adjacent to us to the south. We have the commercial to the north on the west end. So it was our belief was that R3 made some sense on that parcel. So the original submittal was for an R3 zoning with 50 units on the property. The Planning Commission met with us, and their concern was that while they said they supported, they felt the project was okay, they supported the project, they were concerned though that if for some reason it did not move forward, being zoned R3, you could put in up to 73 units, I believe, on that site, which would result in that case in probably multi-story buildings, and they didn't want to see that. They asked Mr. Nunneman if he would be willing to submit the project as a PUD. A couple of the issues with the PUD is, number one, the maximum number of units allowed would be 47 as opposed to the 50 he was proposing. Mr. Nunneman felt that he understood the issue and was agreeable to reducing his project to 46 units. So he eliminated one building, which would have been where the garage storage space is. So he was agreeable to reducing it to 46 units as opposed to 50. A couple of the other issues, as Mr. Grouse indicated, we have the 40-foot setback requirement against commercial, which we don't have, so we would need a variance there, and then the variance on the open space. None of those issues would be a concern or a requirement if it was stone straight R3. Those are only issues as a result of it being a zone PUD. So if this had moved ahead with an R3 zoning and was approved, then the issue with the coverage, the issue with the setback, none of those would have been a problem, an issue. So the Planning Commission felt that I guess you could say those were kind of worthwhile compromises in order to obtain the PUD zoning. And that's so he was agreeable to doing that with the understanding that we would request the waivers. The Planning Commission did not only approve the project, they did specifically recommend approval of those waivers also. With regard to the comments, I'm not an attorney and I'm not going to get into adverse possession. I can't, but being an engineer in a survey and being in business for many, many years, with my limited knowledge of adverse possession, I don't think she has a case here. But if she does, that has to proceed through the courts. It isn't something just happens. You have to go to court and prove it and go through all the legal things. But we did go out and survey the fence as opposed to her property line. And she's correct. At the worst case, it's 7 or 8 feet off into Mr. Hur's property. We did look at that. We did calculate the area that would be adversely possessed, I guess you would say, amounts to 340 square feet, which is 0.008 acres. So the impact on this project would be 1/10% on the open space, which still leaves us well within the requirements, and again, 1/10% on the coverage. So instead of 43.8, it would be 43.9. Basically, it's a rounding error when it comes right down to it. So even if she were to pursue it and successfully accomplish that, it would really have a very insignificant impact on the project. Regard to wetlands, Mr. Nunneman did have a wetland survey done of the property. There are no wetlands on the property. That's been done. She had mentioned a single aisle drive. It's not a single aisle drive. It's a two-way street. Regarding visitors, we have provided what I believe is adequate visitor parking if necessary. I would point out that these units all have two-car garages and drives, so people can also park in the driveways, and then if there's an overflow, we do have the additional parking, which I think totals about 4 parking spaces per acre on the project. Additional parking we've provided. The only sidewalks that are required on this project are on McCord Road and Wilford Road, which we will be providing as part of the project. We're not required to have sidewalks within the development. It's a private drive, private street, for the benefit of those units. With that, I really don't have anything else. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any. I know Mr. Nunneman would also like to speak before we're done here, but if you have any questions for me.
I have one question. It is a tight site.
Yes, it is.
And I did visit the site. I'm sure the other trustees got out there also after your letter. But I'd like to see a fencing and landscape plan. There's 54 conditions if this is approved, but that's not one of the conditions. It's strongly suggested. And I think especially for the neighboring parcels, but I also think in your development you show in your rendering, I realize it's just a rendering, but it shows internal plannings, and I think in keeping with the nature of the adjacent development, I think it'd be a good idea to have a landscaping and fencing plan, and I intend to add that condition to the 54 conditions you already have. That's my only comment.
And by the way, we did agree to all 54 conditions at the planning committee.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Mr. Feller.
And actually, I'd like to thank you for going to the PUD. That gives the township and the zoning people much more control. I do understand that you've already agreed to.
Could you state your address again for the record?
1683 Woodlands Drive, Maumee, Ohio.
Thank you. I think that's good. Mr. Nunneman, did you want to?
Do you have the slides?
Yep.
Thank you. I'm Denny Nunneman. My business address is 3519 Secor Road, Toledo, Ohio, 43606. And I really just want to speak to the quality of the development and the quality of the clientele that will be living there. That's not the rendering. Yeah, we'll just start with the rendering on top. This is a 4-unit building. There will be 1 4-unit building and 7 6-unit buildings for a total of 46 units. So the 6-unit building will be very similar to this. It'll just have 2 more units inserted in it. That sidewalk under the window, the artist put that in there. That does not belong there, but in general, we'll be landscaping it with the split driveway with some nice flowering plants there and under the windows, and we'll do it right. Okay, the site plan, number 2. We will have a railroad-type gate at both ends of the community. The one on Wilford will be down most of the time, and we're doing that primarily to keep it from becoming a cut-through for residents living on Wilford. For the most part, we'll have the McCord Road gate open so our prospective residents can get in, but we'll have a sign that basically says no outlet, and the residents will have a code to a keypad or a remote control. The gates are also siren activated for emergency equipment. And
that site plan is the one where there were 3 4-units, and what we did is we changed it from 3 4-unit buildings. We converted 3 4-unit buildings into 2 6s, basically to create more open space between the 2 buildings. And that was in the original site plan that you saw earlier. And the next... Okay. There will be 2 primary floor plans. There's actually 4 variations that vary from 1,150 to 1,400 square feet. The bigger ones will be on the easterly parcel, but for the most part, they're very, very similar. What's unique about this floor plan is that it has dual master bedrooms to accommodate a variety of clientele. There's a number of older people who no longer sleep in the same bedroom. It accommodates that market. There could be an older person living, a 75-year-old person living with a 50-year-old son or daughter, or a 45-year-old mother living with a 25 or 20-something son or daughter that would have equal-sized bedrooms. Big walk-in closets, a lot of wall space in the living room. This floor plan, we have a scoring system for rating apartment floor plans. It's scored off the chart in terms of the features that it has. So that's that one, and then we can go to the next one. The next one is very similar, except we have a little deeper lot in the easterly portion, so we pulled the garage out. I think it was 3 or 4 feet, and we created what we call a pocket den. You can see there we moved the furnace and hot water tank over into that storage building, or storage room, and then created a pocket den. But other than that, the floor plan is exactly the same. So those are the floor plans. So who will live at Adirondack Village? And in the multifamily industry, the buzzword is renters by choice. People that are going to live there are people that could buy a house. There are many of them that are just selling a house to move into a rental community. They're doing it because they want flexibility. They're doing it because they want freedom. They're doing it because they can save money. Typically, if anybody has a home valued at $150,000 or more, they can pay $1,400 to $1,500 a month and be equal to what they were paying, the all-in cost of living in a single-family home when you take into account the real estate taxes, the maintenance, the snow removal, replacements, and the opportunity cost of investing the value of the equity in the home. Those renters they're not one specific age group. There's really kind of 3 age group. There's the older empty nesters or retired people. All of the residents are typically well-educated. It requires, a $50,000 a year income, 3 times the monthly rent to live there. So they have to be well-educated with good jobs. There are some empty nesters. There are some single professionals that moved into the city. They were transferred in, or they were divorced, and they're now living in a different household. And there's another category that I call the young brainiacs, which are younger people, well-educated, bigger incomes that are living in the rental product until they decide to buy a home. There's also corporate transfers. I have experience leasing villas. I have a very good client who has 3 villa projects. There's one in Monclova called Lakeside. There's one in Temperance called Timber Valley, and there's one on Bancroft called Orchard Creek. And Orchard Creek has land adjacent to it that was recently rezoned for another 112 villas. It's going to be a new development called the Enclave. And in anticipation of that zoning, I was asked to do a study of who lived there. And the primary reason is because the developers knew that they would have issues or concerns of the school system about having a lot of school-aged children living in this rental property and it not producing enough revenue to support the schools. And what we learned, there were 60 villas. We did a survey, we had the rental files on all 60 villas. We pulled out the rental files, and we had a row for every person that lived in those villas. And in those 60 villas, there were 93 people that lived there. There were 7 children under 18, 1 teenager, 5 school-age children from 5 to 14. There was a child who was 4 and one who was 1 year old. So only 4 of the 60 villas had school-age children in them. So it was no burden to the school district, or it was not going to be a burden to the school district. In fact, it was going to be a positive force for the school district in terms of who was living there. In terms of income, while we did this, we pulled their rental income, household income, and what we found was the median household income, half above and half below, was $87,000 a year, and the average income of those villa residents was $103,000. What's interesting is those income levels were higher than the general population living in a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius. So our residents actually had higher incomes than the general population. So for that reason, it's a very, very strong clientele. People that have the money, they just want a simpler lifestyle with a lot more flexibility in it. So that was Lakeside. Now, I haven't done the same study on Timber Valley or Orchard Creek, but I can tell you that I look at all the rental application and trend seems to be the same. Orchard Creek, right now, we're just in lease-up. We've rented 7 or 8 units. Our first resident was a nurse practitioner, 29 years old. I don't know what nurse practitioners make, but I think it's pretty good income. The other one was a training director for BP. There was another one that was a 60-something couple, empty nester, retired type couple. There was an 80-year-old school teacher. There was a nurse anesthetist. And just this past weekend, we had a widower there who was selling his condo, and he owns a home in Florida, and he wants to have a smaller place here and spend more time in Florida. And the other prospect that was through this weekend was a lady that lived in Stonehenge who wanted an attached 2-car garage. So real strong clientele. That's why we want to be in this business. There is a huge difference between an apartment resident that pays $400 or $500 a month and one that pays $1,400 or $1,500 a month. Huge difference in wherewithal and education and things like that. So it's a real strong market. And 75% of the people in the Sylvania marketplace would qualify to live in this. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Anyone else? At this time, I will close the public hearing at 6:56. Did you have any discussions or any points you wanted to bring up? Mr. Crandall, you wanted to add a provision onto the project?
Well, my conclusion, I think this does fit the neighborhood, and I think it would be a good project. But I think because the site is tight, I'd like to see a 55th condition, and that be that the township have a fencing and landscaping plan with the project so that we know what they plan to do. Darrell would have some input. We would also check it and be sure that everything is accomplished.
Okay.
So I will move approval. Resolution 17085, approve the zone change request from A4 to R3 PUD with that additional 55th condition for a landscaping and fencing plan.
Question, is that acceptable to the developer?
Yes.
Second?
Okay, call a roll. Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Jennifer?
Yes.
And I'd like to thank the neighbors for your letters. input. I know I went out and really looked at the site. I'm sure the other trustees did also. Thank you.
So that would mean we'd like to offer Resolution 17-086 as well?
That's separate, right, Darrell?
That's the...
Right, that's,
Oh.
yeah, we have a public hearing for that.
I thought we had
as
to do two parcels on this, but that's...
No,
Okay.
that's one.
See you guys.
This
Good
is
seeing you,
the,
Terry. See you, Craig.
Text changes.
Okay.
So,
My mistake.
See you, Don. Yep. See you, Bruce.
oh, thank you. Oh, no.
Good luck.
We just like a good job, Dave. You know better than I do what that'll be. Right. Thank you.
Brian doing the enclave as well? Darrell?
Okay, my next item is a zone change request, or I'm sorry, not a zone change request, a zoning text request, text amendment to Articles 16, 17, and 22. Sylvania Township Zoning Department staff is asking for this recommendation of approval on the proposed amendments for the purpose of allowing the use of daycare facility in the M1 and M2 zone districts as a permitted use, and to allow the use of kennel as a conditional use in those same districts. Currently, daycare facilities are permitted in M1 and M2 districts only as an accessory use, so that if a company, say, they can offer daycare facilities to their employees, but not to the general public. The zoning office has received multiple complaints within the past year and a half. I'm sorry, not complaints, but requests to put daycare facilities in these light industrial districts. There's also been a growing interest in kennels or doggy daycare in those same districts. However, given the more intense use of a kennel, odors, sounds, whatever, we feel that a conditional use for those uses would be more appropriate. Give the Lucas County Plan Commission staff and the Board of Zoning Appeals the opportunity to review those.
So BZA was on, they're comfortable with it?
I haven't talked to them on that.
So you'd be authorizing us to, you want to make, hold on a second, you want to make,
Sure.
don't take offense to this. You want us to approve a resolution for text amendment change without talking to the BZA? You think you should talk to them first?
Well, it went before the Zoning Commission, they reviewed
Oh, the zoning
text
commission did,
amendments.
okay.
Yeah,
I'm
not-
staying corrected, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
and they're okay with it?
yes,
Okay,
yes, they
very good.
unanimously recommended approval,
Okay.
as did the Lucas County Plan Commission.
Okay. I'll offer resolution 17086 to
But-
approve.
Actually, it's public hearing, I don't know if
Oh, I'm
anybody
sorry.
wants to speak on that or not.
Do you want to? You're more than welcome to.
We have to open the public hearing.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. I would like to open a public hearing at 7:01 to discuss the change of the text amendments.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Melody Blattner, and I live at 539 Geneva Avenue out of Toledo. This is my business partner.
I'm Heidi Malik. I'm 6913 Williamsburg Drive, Sylvania.
And we are actually in the process of opening what we are calling an adult day services or vocational habilitation company. In more layman's term, it would be called an adult daycare facility. We would be providing quality services for adults age 18 and up who have various forms of developmental disabilities. There's a huge need for it in this area right now. I have worked for the past decade running these programs for other people, and I have a lot of parents who have said, you know, oh, can't we just get one in Sylvania? Because I have a lot of Sylvania. That's how I met Heidi, actually. I provided services for her son. And it was, you know, people are like, we don't want them to have to be on a bus for an hour or 45 minutes. Like, can't we get something in our own neighborhood? There's a huge population that's going to be coming into the general population right now, coming out of high school. It's really a great thing to have in the community. It really is. It's not only good for our people and our individuals, but it's good for the community in general. Like, it gets people together and interacting. The reason that we would like to see this come to light is because in a lot of situations we have found in searching for buildings, light industrial buildings really tend to suit what we're doing better than the commercial properties that we've looked at, price-wise, but also in the way that they're set up, in the neighborhoods that they're in. A lot of commercial properties are like storefront properties. They're right on very busy roads. Every property we've fallen in love with was in a light industrial, and we've gotten heartbroken several times over that. Do you have anything to add?
Well, and here, the nature of our business is we cannot advertise. Somebody, a parent, a guardian doesn't drive by in a commercial area and say, wow, that looks like a great place. We do not need to be seen by the public. We don't need to be out there, because how we get our clients is through the county. We cannot go out and say, here we are. People come and find us. We do not go find them. And on a personal note, I was brought home from Toledo Hospital in 1960 to 6068 Sylvan Green Road in Sylvania Township. Lived there my whole life, got married, moved to Toledo for 5 years, came back and bought houses, 2 homes that we have in Sylvania. This is where my heart is. My mother retired from the school system in Sylvania. My 2 siblings and I graduated, went all through the schools, have 3 boys that have gone through Sylvania schools. My daughter-in-law's father is the principal at Timberstone. He married his high school sweetheart from Southview. My heart is in this place. This is where I want my business to be. These are the people I want to give my tax dollars to. There's a ton of places in Toledo. I don't want to be in Toledo. This is what I want. I want home.
And it's not my
How many
home.
square feet do you need?
You have a bill?
Right. We actually we don't want to ever get to the point where we're congested. We don't want to get to the point where our staff are overwhelmed and where it's like you go in and it feels like institutionalized. So we only look at like 3,500 square feet places so that we could have 25 people maybe, and then like up to 5 staff. We're not looking for like huge warehouses.
We don't want a big sunshine. We want intimate,
a home, a
cozy. We come here
a family away from their family.
Be a home, because it's a community. I mean, this is, a family for these people.
Bottom line is you're in favor of the text change.
We are in favor of this change.
You won't hear us mumbling in the back.
Yeah, you won't hear us doing nothing. We will.
And it's a very positive. And when my middle son, who we're doing this for, is 26, when we were at Southview, we kept him there till he was 21, which you can keep them in the school system till they're 21, because there's not a lot out there to do if you're an adult with disabilities in this unfortunate world.
Yeah. And for us, we're looking more at, our main focus are, you can find enclaves anywhere. You can find sheltered workplaces anywhere, lots, any of those.
Do you lease or purchase?
At this point, because we're new startup, we are looking to lease. I would love to, in 5 years, 6 years, be successful enough to buy, purchase, and open, hopefully, a second site somewhere. And there's a need, and we're saving these children and these babies. This population is not going anywhere.
And the people that we're going to be focused on and that our holders focus on are the people who don't have the ability to get regular jobs or can't necessarily learn all of those skills, where they can put them up front at a Walmart and greet people, which is great, and I'm not downing that at all. But the people that we're going to be taking care of are medically fragile, and they need really good care, and, we find so many nice places in Sylvania. It's just,
I'm with you guys. I am with you 100%. Thank you for your calling, both of you.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for staying in Sylvania.
Yeah.
I want to close this public hearing, because I'm going to offer a resolution that we approve this.
All right.
All right?
I need you to sign in and list your address
Okay.
here. And other than that,
Do you have a card?
We're not that far yet.
What's your phone number, one of your phone numbers?
But on a personal note, Mr.
I have some
Crandall,
ideas.
you worked with my mother-in-law,
I did?
Genevieve Malik.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So that should get me some points, she said.
All right, all right.
careful, he might have to abstain now.
I'll offer resolution.
Hold on. I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:08. And do we call a roll after closing it, or?
No, we don't.
Okay, so Neil, you've offered the resolution, Mr. Crandall seconded it, let's call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Jenner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's been great to be part of this whole process.
Yes.
Yeah, we really enjoyed working with, we got to speak with Daryl on a basis, and it's really good. Yeah.
That's nice to
We
hear,
look forward
thanks.
to having you in the town.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, thank you.
My next item is a text amendment.
Hey,
to-
Darrell, did you encourage these people to come, or?
No,
I
no.
don't think we've ever had a text change with any.
That passionate.
Right, yeah, it's probably a first. So my next item is a text amendment to section 2206, architectural projections. This is just to clarify some ambiguity in our current section 2206 that came about after a BZA case regarding basement window wells, and whether they were in the side setback or not, and whether this section even applied to those. So
What happened with that, Daryl, with the BZA? Did they ever get approved?
they decided that it wasn't a violation. I had issued it as a violation.
Interesting.
They did not agree with my assessment on that, which is fine.
Yeah.
And so therefore, that no variance was required then, because they did not feel that 2206 applied to that case.
So let me ask you,
Public, I think we're opening a public
Yeah.
hearing on this.
Okay.
We'll open a public hearing at 7:10.
So can I, in the public hearing, can I?
I don't think.
No one is here to speak, so I guess we'll close the public
Okay.
hearing at 7:11.
Good
And
job.
Neil? Well,
Daryl,
Simcoe's not here to help us along here.
So what do you, so explain this in a little more detail for me. So are you setting a precedent by approving this architectural projections? So is everybody over in Northwood's going to put a side window in and be fine with it? I mean, how is this, are we opening Pandora's box in these subdivisions with regards to ingress and egress to their property?
No, I don't think so, because there's still a limitation on it. It's not like it's going to be a
There's
free...
limitation on 1 to 3 feet, I think, is the most. It depends on, well, it's in the,
Well, if you would have looked at what this house was in Northwoods, I mean, this basement window was way over
I'm not aware of it.
way over the property line.
I don't
Not
know.
over the property line, but it was pretty
It was a 7-foot side setback on the house, and there was a basement egress window well that went out, I believe it was 3.5 feet. And
I'm okay with it.
before all the
I can see
landscaping,
this
before it was
being-
backfilled and all the landscaping.
Yeah, I don't want to start a Pandora's box here, but I can see this.
I mean, I've got to acknowledge, I've pretty much have plagiarized Springfield Townships on this. I mean, I changed a few words here or there, but much of it is what they have. I talked to Jacob, my counterpart in Springfield, and it's worked fine for them.
I got the impression that we need a little more flexibility than the other towns currently have it.
Okay.
So I looked at it as and I like that Daryl's keeping on top of this stuff. Instead of taking some of these smaller matters to the zoning board of appeals, I think it's better to change our text and keep it current. That's my feeling.
Okay.
I will move resolution 17087 to authorize approval of text amendment regarding Article 22, Section 2206.
Second.
Architectural projections.
Okay, call from roll, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Gentleman?
Yes.
Thank you. My next item is Resolution 17089, authorization to file legal action in the Lucas County Common Pleas Court to enforce the zoning resolution against the property at 5747 Roberts Road. I believe you received the paperwork concerning that property. It's the zoning department's hope that we actually don't have to get to that point. Typically, a letter from Mr. Burrell's office gets a lot more action than a letter from the Township Zoning Office.
I noticed in your backup material here, the owner is Melvin E.
Yes.
I think, I'm pretty sure that's his father, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
I think Melvin lives there.
Yeah, I believe so, but yeah,
I believe this must.
according to Aries, Melvin is the property owner.
Well, he may be, and I know you've been given notice to the property, maybe, I think he lives off of Whiteford. I'm not sure if it's Mary Hill or one of those roads back, so I'm wondering if we may be talking to the tenant, not the owner.
We'll go ahead, and again, it's always best to resolve these things out of court and things, and it's
Definitely.
always frustrating when we can't just have a civil conversation with somebody and get what we wanted, but sometimes it does take the heavy hand of the legal arena. So I'd like to offer Resolution 17089, authorized to file legal action for zoning violations on property at 5747 Roberts Road.
Second.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Gentleman?
Yes.
Thank you. And last but not least, Resolution 17094, authorization of abatement of vegetation and/or debris. This is a high grass violation at the property at 4805 Towpath Lane.
I'll offer resolution 17094.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Gentleman?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I'll offer a resolution to adjourn.
Second.